Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever wished you had sort of a clear roadmap to navigate a complex topic without getting lost in endless details? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the evolving world of project management. We're cracking open the latest edition of the PMBO guide, that's the Project Management Body of Knowledge, 7th edition, and its companion, the Standard for Project Management. You shared this foundational material with us, and our mission really is to distill the absolute most important insights for you. We'll explore the fundamental shifts happening in the profession, uncover some surprising facts, and hopefully deliver those aha moments that make even, dense topics incredibly engaging and applicable to your own work.
Yeah, and what's truly compelling about this new edition, I think, is how it reflects the rapid evolution of project management itself. It's moving beyond those rigid prescriptive processes towards a more flexible, outcome-focused approach. It's quite a significant philosophical shift from the previous versions.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture then. What exactly is this new edition, this PMBOK guide and the standard, and maybe what's the headline change? The thing someone familiar with older versions really needs to grasp right away.
Well, at its core, this edition delves into the fundamental concepts and constructs of the project management profession. It introduces 12 principles of project management and 8 project performance domains. But the headline, as you put it, is definitely the deliberate shift from a process-based standard, which, let's face it, could sometimes feel a bit prescriptive,
Right.
to a principles-based standard. This means the focus is now squarely on the intended outcomes, not just, producing deliverables. It's about embracing the full spectrum of development approaches, whether you're using predictive, traditional, adaptive, agile, or even hybrid methods.
That sounds like a pretty significant pivot. I mean, many project managers have built their careers on those process-based foundations. Does this new principles-based approach, does it negate everything they've learned and mastered?
That's a really common and important question. And the source material is very clear on this. Nothing in this new edition negates alignment with the process-based approach of past editions. Absolutely not. In fact, many organizations still find that approach incredibly useful. This new edition simply ensures the guidance stays relevant in a rapidly evolving world. It provides a broader framework that accommodates these diverse ways of working. Think of it as an evolution, maybe not a revolution.
Okay, so it's more about expanding the toolkit, not throwing out the old one. Good. Building on that, the guide also emphasizes a systems view of project management. What does that actually mean to think about project management as an interconnected system? Why is that viewpoint so crucial now?
Right, the systems view. This shift focuses on the entire system for value delivery. It moves the perspective away from just sort of governing portfolios, programs, and individual projects in isolation to truly understanding the value chain. This chain links all these elements and other business capabilities too, ensuring they all work together to advance the organization's strategy and objectives. Essentially, projects aren't just about creating outputs, a piece of software, a building. They're about enabling those outputs to drive specific outcomes that ultimately deliver value to the organization and its stakeholders.
Oh, okay.
Think of it like maybe a living ecosystem where all parts work together for a common purpose. If one part is unhealthy, it impacts the whole system's ability to thrive.
That systems view really sets the stage nicely for the 12 principles you mentioned earlier. These are meant to guide behaviors and decisions, is that right? And they're tied into the PMI Code of Ethics.
Precisely. These principles were developed with input from a global community of practitioners. A lot of feedback went into them. And yes, they are absolutely aligned with the Project Management Institute's, or PMI's, Code of Ethics values: responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. They offer a flexible foundation for effective project management. And while they're internally consistent, they often overlap in practice. You'll see connections between them. And even with general management principles, like the focus on value that applies broadly, right? Not just in projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's maybe hone in on a few of these principles then, the ones that are particularly insightful and maybe impactful for you, the listener, whether you're managing a huge organizational initiative or just, a complex personal goal. Which ones really highlight the shifts and offer some actionable takeaways?
That's a great idea. Let's start with focus on value.
Okay, focus on value. It sounds, incredibly intuitive, almost obvious, but I imagine there's a deeper meaning here than just delivering a product on time. What stands out to you about this principle?
It's the ultimate success indicator, really. And it does challenge some traditional thinking. Many projects might celebrate delivering an output, like, say, launching a new piece of software.
Right, project done.
Exactly. But the PMBOK guide pushes us to ask, Did that software actually make anyone more productive? Did it improve customer satisfaction? What was the outcome? The real insight here is that delivering value means success is measured not just by what you ship, but by the positive change it creates for the organization or the customer. If the software doesn't lead to higher productivity, well, maybe the project wasn't truly a success after all. This forces a more strategic, less purely tactical view of every task.
So you might even need other things, like training, to make the software valuable.
Exactly. Training could become a necessary deliverable to achieve the outcome of increased productivity, which is the real value.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, next, let's talk about tailor based on context. This feels like it directly addresses that one-size-fits-all trap we sometimes fall into. Why is this emphasized so much now?
Because every project truly is unique. Tailoring is the deliberate adaptation of your approach, your governance, your processes to suit the specific environment and the work you're doing. It's not about ignoring best practices, definitely not. It's about applying them intelligently. And it's an iterative thing, it's continuous. You're always aiming for just enough process, not too much, not too little, to maximize value and manage constraints effectively.
Just enough. I like that.
Yeah. And this leads to increased innovation, efficiency, adaptability. It helps you avoid those unnecessary costs or delays that come from rigidly applying a process where it just doesn't fit.
Okay, this next one really resonates with me. Build quality into processes and deliverables. What does that truly mean beyond just, checking the final product at the end? It sounds much more proactive.
Absolutely proactive. Quality means consistently satisfying stakeholder expectations and fulfilling requirements, ensuring it's fit for use. It covers a lot of dimensions: performance, conformity, reliability, efficiency, and so on. This principle emphasizes looking at the cost of quality. This includes the costs of prevention, like good planning and training, appraisal costs, like testing and inspections, and then the costs of failure, both internal failures caught before delivery and external failures found by the customer.
Right, the expensive ones.
Exactly. And what's truly compelling here, and a critical insight, I think, is the cost of change curve. It's a model that graphically shows that the later a defect or issue is found, the exponentially more expensive it becomes to correct. Think about it. Catching a design flaw between two engineers in an early meeting is far quicker and cheaper than recalling a product that's already impacted thousands of customers.
Or fixing a foundation after the walls are up.
Precisely. Or think about building a house, fixing a measurement on the blueprint. Cheap. Fixing a crooked wall after it's built. More expensive. Fixing a leaking roof years later because of a shortcut. Hugely expensive and damaging. Proactive quality, built in from the start, pays off immensely.
That curve is a powerful visual. Okay, finally, from this group, let's talk about embrace adaptability and resiliency. Why are these two concepts combined here, and what's the practical implication given that projects rarely go exactly to plan?
Well, they rarely do. That's just the reality of projects, isn't it? Adaptability is your ability to respond to changing conditions. Resiliency is your ability to absorb impacts and recover quickly from setbacks or problems. They're combined because they're really two sides of the same coin. You adapt to changes as they come, and you need resilience to bounce back when things go wrong. Focusing on outcomes rather than just rigid outputs helps facilitate this. Because if you're focused on the outcome, you have more flexibility in how you get there. It means being able to regroup, rethink, maybe replan when unforeseen factors pop up. This is absolutely crucial for continuous learning and improvement in any kind of dynamic environment.
Okay, so those principles provide the guiding philosophy. But beyond that, the PMBOK guide also lays out 8 project performance domains. What exactly are these, and how do they work together?
Right, the domains. Think of these as groups of related activities that are critical for delivering those project outcomes we've been talking about. What's really insightful about them isn't just listing them, but how the guide stresses their interdependence. They're interactive, interrelated, they operate as a unified system. You can't just focus on one in isolation. These include stakeholders, team, development approach and lifecycle, planning, project work, delivery, measurement, and uncertainty. You see how they connect. You can't excel in delivery without a strong team and clear measurement, for example.
Yeah, you can see the web connecting them. Let's maybe shine a spotlight on a couple of these domains just to give you, the listener, a more concrete sense of how they apply in practice. How about we start with the team performance domain? In a world where projects are increasingly complex, involve diverse groups, why is this domain so critical?
It's absolutely critical. This domain emphasizes that successfully leading a project involves both those traditional management activities, planning, monitoring, coordinating, and crucial leadership activities.
Oh, the distinction.
Yes. Things like influencing, coaching, motivating people. It delves into concepts like servant leadership, which is about empowering the team, and the huge importance of fostering a strong, positive project team culture, one built on respect, collaboration, psychological safety. It also stresses the need for a shared vision, getting everyone aligned and encouraging critical thinking from all team members, not just the project manager acting alone. It's really about harnessing that collective intelligence.
That difference between management and leadership within the team context is key. Okay, next, the development approach and life cycle performance domain. This sounds like it's all about how the work actually gets done. What are the main takeaways here for our listener?
This domain explores that whole spectrum of development approaches we touched on earlier. You've got predictive, like the traditional waterfall model where things are planned upfront in detail.
Right.
Then you have adaptive, which includes agile methods, iterative approaches, incremental delivery, and then you have hybrid approaches, which cleverly blend elements of both. The key takeaway is that the choice isn't fixed. It depends on many factors. The degree of innovation required, how certain or uncertain your requirements are, the level of risk involved, even how the funding is structured.
Can you give an example of hybrid?
Sure. Imagine a project to build a new community center. You might use a hybrid approach. A predictive, more waterfall-like approach for the physical building construction itself. You need clear plans for that.
Makes sense.
But you might use an iterative or agile approach for developing the computing capabilities within the center or the community programs it will offer, because those requirements might evolve as you get user feedback.
Yeah.
This flexibility in selecting the right approach or combination of approaches is absolutely key for modern projects.
Very clear. Okay, finally, let's touch on the measurement performance domain. What should our listener focus on here? It's got to be more than just numbers on a dashboard, right?
Oh, absolutely. Measurement isn't just about collecting data for the sake of it. It's about getting actionable data, data that truly facilitates decision-making and ensures you take timely, appropriate actions. It's about knowing what to measure, focusing on key performance indicators, or KPIs, that are smart, specific, meaningful, achievable, relevant, and timely. Don't just measure everything, measure what matters. And this brings up a really key question the source highlights. Are you measuring leading indicators, which can help predict future trends and allow you to course correct? Or just lagging indicators, which only tell you about past performance?
You need both, presumably.
You often need both, but leading indicators give you that chance to be proactive. The source also highlights some fantastic visual tools, things like information radiators, those visible, often low-tech, high-touch displays in team areas that share timely knowledge. Think whiteboards, charts on the wall, and Kanban boards are another great example, fantastic for visualizing workflow and identifying bottlenecks. But a critical insight here is to be aware of measurement pitfalls. Things like misusing metrics, maybe driving the wrong behaviors because you're measuring the wrong thing, or confirmation bias, only seeing data that confirms what you already believe.
Or confusing correlation with causation.
Exactly. That's a big one. Just because two things happen together doesn't mean one caused the other. You have to be careful how you interpret the data.
Got it. So principles guide us, domains group the work. Now the source also gives us a peek into a vast toolkit, models, methods, and artifacts. This isn't about being prescriptive, saying you must use this tool, but more offering a menu of options, right?
That's exactly right. It's about empowering project teams with choice, showing them what's available. A model, as the guide defines it, is essentially a thinking strategy or a framework to explain a concept. A method is a specific means or technique to achieve an outcome. And an artifact is a tangible output like a template, a document, a report, something you create. This section gives you a high-level grouping of commonly used tools, things you might use, without dictating exactly when or how. It respects that tailoring principle we talked about.
Okay, so what are some intriguing examples you found here? Things our listener might find surprisingly useful, or maybe examples that highlight the guide's expanded, more flexible scope. Let's start with models.
Sure. In models, we see things like situational leadership models. These are invaluable, teaching you to adapt to your leadership style based on the development level and needs of your team members. It's not one-size-fits-all leadership. They're also motivation models, like Daniel Pink's model, focusing on intrinsic motivators, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. The guide highlights these because beyond just salary, what often truly drives engagement is giving people freedom in their work, the chance to get better at something and connecting their work to a larger meaning.
That resonates.
Yeah, and that cost of change curve we discussed earlier, that's presented as a powerful model, too, for understanding the economics of quality.
Okay, and what about some practical methods that stood out to you?
Well, for methods, you have things like alternatives analysis, which is a structured way to evaluate different options before making a key decision. There's benchmarking, comparing your performance or processes against others, maybe best-in-class examples. There are various estimating methods, including things like relative estimating, using story points, which is common in agile contexts and can be surprisingly effective. And you'll find common meetings and events listed as methods, too. Things like the daily stand-up or scrum meeting, retrospectives, which are really a type of lessons learned meeting focused specifically on continuous improvement for the team, and formal change control board meetings for managing scope changes.
Right, the practical tools. And finally, artifacts. What are some examples of the tangible things you might actually produce or use from this toolkit?
Artifacts include essential items like a project team charter. This is crucial. It records team values, ground rules, operating guidelines, helps set expectations right from the start. There's the requirements traceability matrix, which sounds technical, but is basically about linking requirements directly to the deliverables that satisfy them, ensuring everything you build actually serves a stated purpose.
Important check.
Very. And of course, those dashboards and information radiators we mentioned earlier, those are artifacts for visualizing data and progress. A risk register, too, is a absolutely crucial artifact for tracking identified risks and how you plan to manage them proactively.
Okay, that gives a good flavor of the toolkit. Finally, the source material highlights the importance of a couple of key supporting roles that are maybe sometimes underestimated. First, the project sponsor. Why are they so critical? And maybe what happens when they're not fully engaged?
Yeah, the sponsor role is huge. An active, engaged project sponsor is consistently identified in research as a critical success factor for positive project outcomes. They provide that essential decision leadership that often sits outside the project manager's direct authority. They're the crucial link, really, connecting the project team directly to the organization's executive strategy and vision. They communicate that vision, they advocate for the project's needs, help secure resources, remove roadblocks the team can't handle alone.
So, a champion.
Exactly. A champion and an enabler. They ensure the project stays aligned with the broader business objectives. And when a sponsor isn't engaged, well, you often see the negative consequences. Longer decision-making times, conflicting priorities cropping up, negative impacts on scope, quality, schedule, budget. It can really derail a project quickly if that high-level support isn't there.
Okay, definitely critical. And the other key supporting player mentioned is the Project Management Office, or PMO. What's their role in this new, more flexible project management environment?
PMOs are generally established to improve project management capability and performance across the organization, looking at schedule, cost, quality, risk management, the whole picture. They can offer invaluable guidance, provide support services like templates or training, or sometimes even oversee entire portfolios of projects directly. Their key capabilities, especially in this modern context, involve fostering strong project management skills throughout the organization, ensuring processes are appropriately right-sized, remember that tailoring principle, for each project's needs, and ultimately helping the organization drive more value from its project investments. They help ensure consistency and good practice without necessarily stifling the flexibility the new guide emphasizes.
Okay, great overview. So we've taken quite a fascinating deep dive today into the latest PMBOK guide and the standard for project management. We've explored that fundamental shift towards a principles-based approach, looked at the crucial systems view of value delivery. We honed in on some of the 12 guiding principles and 8 performance domains, and peeked into that valuable toolkit of models, methods, and artifacts. And we also touched on the critical roles of sponsors and PMOs in making sure projects succeed and actually deliver that value.
Yeah, I think the core message comes through pretty clearly. Modern project management is dynamic, it's adaptable, it's fundamentally about enabling value and focusing on achieving meaningful outcomes, not just ticking off outputs from a list.
So as you think about how you approach your own work, maybe it's a formal project, maybe it's just a complex personal goal you have, here's something to consider. If tailoring, adaptability, and taking a systems view are so key to project success, how might thinking about your own life, perhaps your relationships or your personal aspirations, as living systems rather than fixed, rigid plans, how might that fundamentally change how you navigate challenges, embrace change, and ultimately achieve the future you envision? Something to mull over.